Welcome to all the citizens of Canby, to the uniformed firefighters and police officers, and to our dignitaries that showed up today for this presentation of the 911 September 6th, 2001. At this time, I'd like to call on Chaplain Bill Roberts to lead us in an invocation.
Good morning. This is a somber occasion, as my wife and I were doing our Bible study this morning. Yes, the chaplain does read the Bible. She came across a story where this young fellow in New York City wanted to be a firefighter. So he went to the station, he volunteered, and then went off to college and became a stockbroker. And he was assigned to the 100th floor of the South Tower. When the plane hit, he had presence of mind enough to jump into a semi-firefighting role, and he escorted 12 people down the stairs, and then he went up to guide more people down through the smoke, and unfortunately he perished. A few years later, his parents came in contact with some of the folks that he helped rescue, and they said, yes, that's him. And they could positively identify him because he always wore a bandana. So I thought that was interesting how they finally linked up together. So when police and fire respond, they don't know the rest of the story, and so in this case, that is the rest of that story. Join me in prayer, please. Lord, we still ask blessings on those that perished in the planes and on the ground, in the buildings. We ask that you be with those today who were rescuing, doing heroic things. It's not easy to do those things, but that's their job, their task that they have been assigned. We ask blessings on each one here, honoring this precious day, and bless them mightily for being here this morning on this fine sunny morning. Bless them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. Will you please rise for the presentation of colors? Honor Guard.
Guard, prepare to post the colors. Honor Guard, post the colors. Uniformed fire personnel, attention. Ladies and gentlemen, follow along with me with the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor Guard, retreat. Forward, march.
Thank you. Please be seated. What a beautiful day, huh? Couldn't ask for a nicer day after some of that hot weather we've been having, but let's also not forget the victims of the hurricanes down in Texas, in Florida that they're currently experiencing, as well as the earthquakes in Mexico. There's a lot of people in need right now, a lot of people really hurting, and God has blessed us with some beautiful weather. Also, again, good morning to Mayor Hodson, to Senator Olson, to the Police Chief Brett Smith, City Administrator Rick Robinson, and to the other dignitaries, city councilors that attended today, but mostly to the citizens of Canby. 16 years ago, 16 years ago, our nation was attacked. The events on September 11, 2001 may be fading in a lot of Americans' minds today, but not ours. But for those of us who spend our lives in the service of others, be it in the fire service or law enforcement, in the military, the memories of terrorist attacks that took so many lives remains fresh. The men and women of the Canby Fire Department remember the 343 New York City firefighters and paramedics killed that day while rushing into those two doomed buildings as everyone else was rushing out. We remember the 23 New York City police officers, the 37 Port Authority officers killed. We remember the 125 civilian and military personnel killed in the Pentagon. And we remember nearly 3,000 civilians who perished in the towers on those from those four airliners that day. There is a distinct feeling when a firefighter, just a few times in their career, feels like something bad might happen this day. It's a feeling arriving at the scene of an incident and your sixth sense tells you that this is going to be dangerous and you might not make it home. I have no doubt that the men and women who responded to the World Trade Center that day had that feeling as they got off their rigs or out of their patrol cars. They had the feeling that they went ahead anyway, many of them to a certain death. On the morning of September 11th, New York City Fire Department Battalion Chief Joseph Pfeiffer was the initial incident commander at the Twin Towers. In the lobby of Tower 1, Chief Pfeiffer gave orders to arriving firefighters, including Lieutenant from New York City Fire Department Engine 33. He told the lieutenant and other fire companies to take their crews up to the 70th floor on the burning building, an order that was carried out immediately by all the firefighters, including Lieutenant Kevin Pfeiffer, the battalion chief's brother. Lieutenant Kevin Pfeiffer died that day, and his brother, who survived, never saw him again. This is the meaning of sacrifice. This is the meaning of selflessness. This is truly the meaning of service. As the years since 9/11 continue to pass, and as they will, what bigger lesson can we take with us that we can hold close besides the memories of those heroes, all of them, civilians and sworn, who died on that terrible day? We can hold the idea of service, the idea of giving a small piece of us back as we remember what those heroes tried to do for victims of a senseless terrorist attack. As firefighters, we serve every time we put on our uniforms, and many of us spend our off days serving our friends, our families, and our communities. What better way to honor the memory of the fallen other than to commit to service? On a day we gather to remember, we should also pledge to serve in whatever meaningful way we can. For in the service, we can find resiliency. the section of the World Trade Center and the plaques that are out in our memorial stand here in memory and tribute of the horrible day and also the symbol of resiliency. It is a reminder that Americans will remember, we will rebuild, and continue to serve their country in times of need and crisis. Just look around at the volunteers today that are headed to Houston, headed to Florida, also teams headed down to Mexico to help people out. As Americans, we will be resilient and we will help each other out in times of crisis. Canby Fire Department will also continue to serve, along with the police department, to be there whenever the angels call us, and to never forget the ultimate sacrifices that were made on September 11th, 2001. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call on Chief Brett Smith of the Canby Police Department.
Well, good morning. The terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001 caused more law enforcement line-of-duty deaths than any other single incident in American history. One officer was killed when United Flight 93 crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, as he and other passengers attempted to regain control of the plane from the hijackers. 71 officers were killed when the two World Trade Center buildings collapsed in New York City. Since then, dozens more have passed away in the years following 2001 as the direct result of illnesses contracted while working in the hazardous conditions immediately following the attacks in New York. Today, we pay tribute to the law enforcement officers representing 10 different agencies who died as a direct result of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Today, I can't possibly talk about all the individuals who died, but I'd like to share with you the stories of a few. Police officers Christopher Amoroso and Antonio Rodriguez, both who are employed with the New York Port Authority Police Department, were killed while attempting to rescue victims trapped in the World Trade Center. As evacuation continued, the first tower unexpectedly collapsed as a result of the intense fires caused by the impact of the hijacked plane. Captain Kathy Mazza, also employed with the New York Port Authority Police Department, was killed while she was leading a group of people downstairs when the building started to collapse. However, before her death, she used her 9mm pistol to shoot out glass walls, enabling many people to escape. Police officer James Godby, employed with the New York City Police Department, died of a heart attack, which was a direct result of his participation in the rescue efforts while attempting to save many victims while trapped under the debris that had fallen from the collapsed Twin Towers. Officer Godby worked hundreds of hours as part of the rescue and recovery effort at Ground Zero. He contracted an illness after his exposure and inhalation to toxic materials that were present at the World Trade Center site. That condition later led to a fatal heart attack. Richard, see if I can pronounce this right, Guadnero, employed with the Law Enforcement Division for the U.S. Department of Interior Fish and Wildlife Service, was killed when the commercial airliner he was a passenger on was hijacked when returning home from vacation. The plane crashed after passengers who had heard about the other hijackings attempted to retake control of the plane while in flight. During this retaking effort, the plane crashed into a field in rural Pennsylvania. It is believed that he was among those who attempted to retake control of the plane. The terrorists hijacked the plane for the intended purpose of crashing it into the White House. The heroic actions of those on the plane foiled the efforts of the terrorists, and the plane crashed just 127 miles or 46 minutes away from Washington, D.C. Whether responding to the buildings burning associated with the Twin Towers, or fighting with hijackers in an attempt to retake the hijacked plane that was intended to kill innocent civilians, the common theme of these police officers is that they put the safety of others before their own. Law enforcement officers, along with first responders, rush to assist the victims, to lead them to safety or to protect them from future harm. It is because of the courageous and quick actions of those at the World Trade Center site that it is estimated that over 25,000 people were saved that day. God only knows the number of lives saved from the intended destruction of the White House because of those who were willing to fight until death to save the lives of people they didn't even know, and to save the White House, the iconic symbol of freedom of America that has been the official residence and workplace for every president of the United States since John Adams in 1800. When you step back and look at most disasters, those first responders who choose to serve demonstrate a character of selflessness. They are people who are willing to act. While some people may be rendered helpless after becoming involved in a tragic event, the vast majority of first responders, like those of 9/11, will not be passive observers, but instead they'll be ready and willing to respond and help others in need. Thousands of police, fire, paramedics, and other first responders nationwide are sworn to serve and to protect. For the police officer, despite the threats from knives, guns, blunt objects, or the growing shift in our country to assault police officers, they continue to answer the call to serve and protect. Rather than avoiding the risks, they instead rush to the emergency, putting them in harm's way. There are a lot of hidden dangers being a police officer. The challenge and the inherent disadvantage for police officers in any given incident is that they never know which kind of peril might unfold. One might ask, why would anyone want to be a police officer due to the dangers that come with the job? I believe it is because the policing profession offers an opportunity to help others and to make a difference. The work they do fills the void in the world. They provide opportunities for individuals who are willing to make sacrifices in order to serve a greater cause, the safety and well-being of our society as a whole. They arise each day from their sleep and choose to respond to the next 9/11 call. Our world needs guardians to protect each other from the dangers we all face, and the law enforcement profession offers the opportunity to be a part of something more important than oneself. As we remember those first responders who lost their lives in 9/11 terrorist attacks, please also join me in saluting and applauding all of our first responders who serve today and carry on the same courageous spirit of those of September 11th, 2001. Thank you.
My privilege to introduce Mayor Hodson, who probably doesn't need a lot of introduction. Mayor.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, Chief Smith and Chief Davis, very much for organizing this. And thank you to the officers and our firefighters. Can't begin to say thank you enough, because thank you doesn't seem to cover what you do for us in our community every day. So thank you. This is a day of remembrance of 4 horrific events, of lives lost, of lives saved, and of heroes. It's a day of remembering where we were physically when we heard and watched these events unfold that day, as well as over many days and weeks after the event. We remember the emotions of that day, our shock and disbelief, frozen and grabbing for as many loved ones as we could, our anger at those that would do this, our loss and our resolve, the sense of community and concern for the human condition that swept our communities and our nation after that event. As we remember the events of September 11th, 2001, and that day, we are also called for today as not only remembrance, but as a day of service to our communities, and to each other. We must find ways, even small ways, to serve someone, anyone in our community. We must positively do what we can to impact the human condition around each one of us. Even a little bit today will strengthen our community and ourselves as we remember today and the events of that day in 2001. Thank you all for being here this morning, and God bless you all in our city and our nation. Thank you.
Again, it's my privilege to introduce to you Senator Alan Olson, he's got a very, very busy schedule, but when we called him, he personally called me back right away and said he would be honored to speak at today's event. So thank you, Senator.
Good morning. I echo the thanks that the good mayor of our city has given to everyone, to our firefighters and our police. September 11th, 2001. It was a beautiful sunny morning. The eggs were hot. The sweet aroma of my country ham permeated the air. I was having breakfast with my wife in Charleston, South Carolina. We were on a well-deserved vacation to visit the Old South and Civil War sites. It was just before 8:45 in the morning. In the next few moments, the history of America and the lives of all Americans would change forever. Do you remember where you were on that day? The first report of a plane crashing into the Twin Towers came over the TV. Speculation was that it was a small private plane or some other type of small aircraft. It did not take long to see that that was not the case. It was a large jetliner, and the devastation was dramatic. I know we all remember those first pictures. I prayed for all those souls on the plane and in the building that suffered a horrendous death. How could this have happened? Would we recover the black boxes that would surely tell us what had occurred? Then, beyond anyone's belief, the film of another jetliner crashing into the other tower was broadcast on the airwaves. America had just suffered the most horrific attack in its history. No one would have imagined that there was more to come. Many more lives would be lost before the day ended. Most, if not all of us, remember that terrible day. But in the dust, the ashes, the flames shine the true American spirit. We had been attacked by those who wanted to do great harm to America. What they got was a great glimpse of Americans, not white, not black, not Latino, nor any of the many ethnicities that make up this great nation of ours, doing what Americans do best, helping each other through crisis. At the top of the list of great Americans are the first responders who rush to those towers to provide what they do best in chaos, helping those injured. They came by the hundreds: police, fire, EMTs, and medical personnel. Off-duty personnel also came in to lend their help to this catastrophe. Without fear, they donned their gear and rushed into the infernos. Americans saving Americans. Many of these brave men and women would be lost on this day as those two large towers crashed to the ground. If one could turn back the hands of time, the question to ask these brave people would be, would you do it again if you knew the outcome? I would say the answer would be a unanimous yes from every one of them. They knew what their duty was, and they did it without fear or trepidation of the outcome. People needed to be saved, and that was their job. Thousands of lives were lost that day, but the world saw what America really was: a nation of people who care for one another, A great example of this are the people on United Flight 91 who sacrificed their lives so that other Americans could live. This is America. Have we let Father Time dim our memories of this fateful day? Have we forgotten that all men are created equal? That as Americans, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? I personally don't think we have. I think it has been pushed back in our memories. We have had many catastrophic events in America since September 11th, 2001. The first responders always responded, and Americans always came out and helped other Americans. This can be seen as late as 3 weeks ago with Hurricane Harvey, and also with now Hurricane Irma. People from all over America coming to help those that needed it. This is America. This is what Americans do. We as Americans will always have different opinions on issues. That is what's supposed to happen. At times it is difficult to see the tumultuous way we treat each other over complex issues. We have done this in the past, and we will do it in the future. But when a tragedy occurs, we once again bond together to overcome any and all obstacles, with first responders in the forefront. We owe them all a debt of gratitude. America is great because of its people. God bless the great state of Oregon, and God bless America. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call on the honor guard. If you would all rise, please. We're going to have the ringing of the bell. Julio Corvero, would you please come forward?
The men and women of today's fire service are confronted with many dangers in work environments that, than ever before. We are forced to continually change our strategies and tactics to accomplish our tasks. Our methods may change, but our goals remain the same as they were in the past: to save lives, to protect property, sometimes at a terrible cost. That is what we do. This is our chosen profession. This is the tradition of the firefighter. The fire service of today is ever-changing, but is steeped in tradition 200 years old. One such tradition is the sound of a bell. In the past, as firefighters began their tour of duty, it was the bell that signaled the beginning of the day's shift. Throughout the day and night, each alarm was sounded by a bell, which summoned the brave souls to fight fires and to place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizen. And when the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, it was the bell that signaled to all the completion of the call. When a firefighter had died in the line of duty, paying the supreme sacrifice, it was the mournful toll of the bell that solemnly announced a comrade's passing. We utilize these traditions as symbols which reflect honor and respect on those who have given so much and who have served so well. To symbolize the devotion that these brave souls have for their duty, a special signal of 3 rings, 3 times each, represents the end of a comrade's duty and that they will be returning to quarters. And so, to those who have selflessly given their lives for the good of their fellow men, their task completed, their duties well done, to our comrades, their last alarm, they are going home.
Uniformed personnel, attention. Uniformed personnel at ease. Thank you, and that concludes our presentations today. We do have refreshments here. Please stay and help us eat these cookies and have some coffee and just get to know each other. And have a great day. Thank you.